It's Devin from MVP Sport Fishing and Real Action Charters. I just wanted to give a general recap on the 2022 fishing season, show you a handful of my best flashers from last year, and give an outlook on what I feel like is coming up in 2023. Now, I generally am fishing, the middle of the lake north, so keep that in mind when I say all this. But we had fairly inconsistent to almost non-existent kings for a good chunk of June this last year. That led me to fish lake trout for a couple tournaments. But if you exclude June or most of June, the rest of the year was great. It was really consistent. I'm not saying that there was no bad days or no tough days, because it's fishing. There's always going to be some mixed in. But generally speaking, it was really consistent throughout the whole rest of the season. All the way through October. It was probably, I'll say it was the best fall fishing that I can remember. The people who stuck it out through October, I mean, they were catching limits all the way to the end of October. Another point that I wanted to make is I saw some of the biggest cohos that I've ever seen. Again, I'm fishing north half the lake. I don't see a ton of cohos. But this last year, I mean, the amount of 12 to 15 pounders in Sturgeon Bay that we had on charters, and then over in Frankfurt while I was over there for a week fishing a tournament over there, man, those things were awesome, and they're a heck of a bonus when you're tournament fishing for sure. So those are just some general comments I wanted to throw out there about 2022. I want to jump into showing you a handful of my best flashers from last season. Now, I'm going to premise this by saying everybody wants to hear about baits, myself included. I'm probably in the 99th percentile of baits owned, and I'm not taking anything away from colors of baits when I say this, because it is an important factor. But in my opinion, bait color is no higher than 6th on my list on a daily basis. There are other things I feel are much more important, and that's kind of the whole reason I wanted to start this channel, is to stress some of that other stuff. I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to make videos on all that, and again, these are great baits, but speed, direction, location, type of bait, depth of bait, I mean, those 5 on a daily basis I'm putting ahead of what I want to figure out before I'm trying to figure out the best bait color of that day. That being said, here are 5 flashers that I had last year that were easily the best bait on the boat for, and each one was the best bait on my boat for an extended period of time last year. Obviously not all at the same time, but each one dominated for their own period of time. In no particular order, I'm going to start with this one. Obviously, lake trout. Not that you can see this very well. It's just Old Metal Dodger Spin and Glow. I use that a lot in June. If we can look at this a little bit, you can see how scuffed up it is. It had its fair share of the bottom. Next, green antifreeze. It's, none of these are going to be anything secret, anything mind-blowing. We have a Megatron, green jeans, a UV Dragon, and possibly my favorite bait of all time, a UV Green Dolphin. Those each had their periods of time this year. Like I said, obviously there's many other baits that were super good. I just happened to pull those out of my box because those are definitely some of my best from last season. I'm going to give you a bonus one here. This was a bait that about halfway through the year I had on quite a bit. and then it specifically was really good and part of the reason why I won in Frankfurt this year. It's a 10-inch fish blade. This one is a Kevin's Girlfriend with a vegan rig. It's kind of tough to hold all this up in front of my camera here, but it's basically got teasers just like a meat rig, only it just has a regular fly at the end. I personally don't run meat. We'll get into why I feel as strongly on that as I do in another later video. But I think a vegan rig is a great supplement to that, and it can be really good at times, especially the later half of the year. I'm going to experiment with it a little bit in the beginning half of this year because I didn't get to do that last year. I shouldn't say I didn't get to. I didn't do that last year, and you know, maybe a vegan rig is one of those things you want to check out for next year. Put that in your goals, something to check out. Maybe figure out how you like to run it, if you like to run it, something like that. But this brings us to the 2023 outlook. Obviously, we've had a fairly mild winter. Everything's open. You can get to the lake in most ports now. Hopefully, spring doesn't decide to keep dragging on and on and on. We got a little bit of snow coming here where I live. Hopefully, it starts to warm up a little bit and we have an early start to the season. I am banking on that. I think this is going to be one of those seasons where you can get out there in May and not even just the end of May. I think it's going to be hopefully more the middle of May. And again, I'm speaking for the northern half of the lake, and be able to go out there and catch kings. I'm fully prepared to be making some videos and doing some things out there in May, and hoping that there's some kings around to do so. So I think it's going to be an early start to the season, way, way, way different than last year. But we'll see how it plays out. Otherwise, I'm done here. We'll see you on the next one.